Welcome to the Be Empowered podcast with your host, Graham Hopkins. My goal is to help you regain your power by bridging the gap between who you think you are right now and who you really are. In simple language, that is like making your childhood dreams come true. This is for those who want to make an impact in their lives but don't know how to get there. Be ensured, when you know and feel connected to your spiritual mind, you master your world.
Welcome everybody to this edition of the Be Empowered Show. My name's Graham Hopkins. Today we have Dianne Collins back, and Dianne's been with us before. And Dianne, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much, Graham. It's always a pleasure to be in conversation with you.
Well, since we spoke last time, I've actually finished your book, which is this one here, if the viewers can see it. It's Do You Quantum Think?
Move it over a little bit, yeah. That's good.
How's that?
New thinking that will rock your world in there, right? In the best of ways, of course.
Yeah, and I want to tell you, Dianne, that it's rocked my world. One of your mantras is when you master your mind, you master your life. And I guess I'm one of those people who have tried to work out the principles that you put into your book over probably a period of 25 years. And this is the first time I've picked up one book and it's all there. And it's so succinct and clear, the message that you write. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. And you know, I really feel, as we all do, that we are a vehicle of wisdom that comes through us in a very, each of us, as I like to say, the paradox of being human is we're universally the same and we're uniquely distinct. So what I feel that it comes through me, but a friend of mine who was an author, Debbie Ford, who passed away a few years ago, people might know her from the Shadow Process. And she once said to me, when she was coaching me while I was writing Do You Quantum Think, and she said, I said, well, I'm happy, I'm grateful to be the vehicle. And she said to me, well, you're also doing the work. So it really is a both and. And I'm saying that really for everyone who's in this conversation with us, Graham, because it's important we like to be, try to be humble as much as we can to get that aspect out of it, and just being in deep gratitude for that which comes through us from infinite intelligence. And at the same time, it is up to us to choose to be in action and actually do the work that we have been given to do. And I think so it's that kind of combination of free will and destiny. So I am deeply grateful. And for me, it was like, I'm glad you noticed it's all there, because I thought, let me just put this all together. There's this other, more expanded reality going on. And we have a little smattering of it. We're much more today. Quantum's become the buzzword, but it's a quantum reality, the field, subtle energy, all these different things that we're working on, mindfulness. And so I thought, well, this is the expanded reality. This is the nature of reality more attuned with the nature of nature. And how can we have ourselves be actually thinking this way, being this way as a way of being? So I thought, let me put it all, that's exactly what I thought, what you said. I actually had the conscious thought, what if I put together all the principles that I have come across? As you say, you've been doing it for 25 years, I've been doing it at least that long. And doing what? You know, seeking the wisdom, seeking to put it into practice. And so that's what I did. And I always knew it would take a kind of spiritual awakening, an elevation of consciousness for our world to be better, to our world to improve how we are with each other. You read the headlines and it's scary. And that when I came across the quantum principles, the quantum science, I'm not a scientist, but I thought this is great because people can understand science. People can, you know, not the intricacies of it, but understand from the point of view of this gives some validity, this gives some modern credibility to the principles that have been in our universal wisdom since the beginning of recorded history, and probably, I'm sure, before. So when you put it all together, and, you know, my part of it is how we live this. How do we make it practical in modern culture? So, yes, thank you.
So one of the things that I really like about your book is that it is practical and it has practical application to it, which is really important. But getting back to the title, Do You Quantum Think? I like one of your statements where you say the quantum discovery is that the mind does matter. That's I think that's a really important aspect of the whole thing, how important our mind is.
That's exactly right. And that really is the main paradigm shift in the scientific worldview. And why I'm going to say more about that, but the reason that it's important, and you have a knack, you have the talent of really honing in on what is the most significant points of this. And that is that, first of all, what I discovered is that although we like to imagine ourselves as independent thinkers, as thinking freely, that our thinking is actually shaped. The whole framework from which we think is shaped by the predominant worldview. And this means, what does it mean? It's very simple. What we believe to be true about the nature of reality and how it works, including what we're capable of and what we're not, what's possible and what's not. How do we accomplish anything in life? How do we accomplish the results we want? So there is, you know, what's the methodology? What is it that we've been born with that enables us to create anything? Well, we're in a quantum age, and we have new information about the power of mind, about the relationship of mind to mind and mind to matter communications. Yet, our culture, for the most part, is still very much under the influence of the, what I lovingly call, the old world view, the industrial age world view. So the shift in scientific paradigm as it regards our thinking becomes of the utmost importance, because the earlier worldview from the 17th century rational science, as it's called, also known as scientific materialism, material, keyword, is that only physical matter is real. And how did that orient our thinking around the physical five senses, what we could see, hear, feel, taste, touch? And you can see how that shows up even in social issues, such as prejudice and things like this, and being at war with one another. Because if you're looking in the physical, we look separate, we look different. But the big paradigm shift is that in the beginning of the 20th century, starting with Einstein, who, you know, had many genius revelations that literally changed the world and made much of our technology possible, and the quantum physicists who followed him. But, you know, what did he say? He said, well, wait a minute, matter isn't fixed and solid. it's actually energy, and energy is always moving. Energy, it's energy in flux, in continuous movement, and that these two, matter and energy, basically are convertible, that one converts into another at, higher or lower frequencies or speeds. So we perceive with our five senses what feels solid to us, and of course that we have to. That's what makes, life on Earth and survival possible. But what did the quantum physicists declare? That was totally different than that physical reality only that gave rise to the industrial age of machine. Is they said, wait a minute, the universe isn't like a giant machine, it's more akin to a giant mind. That is, that reality at the substratum is consciousness. It's mind-based, not matter-based. Now, many scientists, as you probably know, and many people listening and watching now, that, a great deal of scientists still do not have that view. But yet, this has been substantiated, this mind-to-mind and mind-to-matter influence, many times over the past 100 years, and particularly in the past 10 to 20 from what I research. Again, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an expert in that. Quantum think as a system of principles, a system of thinking, is not about science, it's about how we can use the more updated and accurate discoveries of science to proactively shape our thinking. And this is what's so important, because as much as we've been seekers, wanting to live a consciously awakened life, when you still see that kind of a gap, between, well, how do I live this? And noticing that I still have habits of thinking, emotional habits that are not serving me. Well, when you start to see your thinking as a system and you're able to distinguish in the moment that when your thinking is being influenced by that old world, mechanical worldview, as I say, not to insult any of us, but in many ways, we have developed mechanical habits of thinking, mechanical habits of relating to situations. Well, we're not stuck with them. That's the great news. To say, not, that when you can distinguish what I give a name for it, least action pathways, the least creative action, the least conscious action in the way that you're thinking, in the way that you're responding emotionally, that level of awareness, which we could call awakened awareness, awakened thinking, is what gives us in that moment the opportunity to choose. Because, Graham, to the extent that we're just, stuck in these least action pathways, these automatic, whether it's an automatic approach to your relationship, to your business, to how you relate to what's going on in the world today, to your own self, very important. I hope we can talk more about that part of it, is that to the extent to which that automaticity is functioning, we're not actually a choice, even though we have the opportunity in every moment, an infinite possibility moment. We have the opportunity to choose our intent in the form of thought. Intent is the central dynamic of creation that we have been divinely bestowed with just by right of human birth. How do we create anything? Is we direct our attention, our energy, our mind, our consciousness, our awareness, and that activates the energy intelligent field we can call a mind field, and that begins to create a resonance so that we attract many results that will be consistent with our intent. So when we can, in every moment, generate consciously our intent for our experience with another, and we can do this only in that state of awakened awareness, so that we're not stuck with whatever thought happens to be floating in, I say visiting, in their surrounding thoughtosphere, to put a little fun into it. You know, we're not, just because a thought enters our mind field doesn't mean you're at conscious choice with it. It doesn't even mean it's yours. I mean, when you think of it, that we're in mind fields, we're picking up, just like whatever, you know, Bluetooth, radio waves, we're picking up thought waves. They're not necessarily our own. So this conversation right now, my intent is that we're all getting another level of freedom to be with this conversation, realizing that you are not stuck with any thought that happens to cross over into your mind field. You can say, oh, all right, that's a least action pathway of the culture of whatever. You know, let's move on. What is it that is my intent right now? So it's not like you have to monitor every thought. And this is where the importance of the system comes in. Because once you take this literal quantum leap in systems of thinking from the framework of these principles that I put into Do You Quantum Think, so that everyone would have access to it, and it's what you're really doing when you read it is you're accessing your own awareness. You're accessing the only reason these principles make any sense to any of us is because they're inherent within us. At least, you know, they're not like, it's not like it's inside your body, because we don't end at the edge of our body. So it's inherent in our own multidimensional being that we're connected to this universal intelligence. So when you read Do You Quantum Think, what you're doing is you're activating these principles within yourself so you can access them. So I want to ask you, did that happen for you, Graham, as you were reading? What was your experience?
To be honest, I've put a lot of these principles into action over the last 10 years. So a lot of it wasn't new to me. A lot of it was, and sure, the things that was new to me, I did the exercises, and I'm trying to make it work more and more in my life. I mean, it's such an important part of our being.
It is. Maybe we can talk about some of the principles, but I wanted to say something when you said a lot of it wasn't new to you. And that thought, this is exactly what I was referring to, is that it won't appear, I mean, some of it may be, again, it's coming through however my expression of it is. But these are universal principles. How I express it and the method that I'm using so that we can actually integrate it may be something that is, we each have our own way. There are many access points in. But in terms of it being new, 2 points about that. One is that it won't seem new to you because we resonate with it. It's in us. That's whether you've studied it or not. You may not have studied any kind of quantum, spiritual, energetic resonance principles at all in your life. It doesn't make any difference because when you hear it, when you encounter something that rings true for you, you just know it in your own being. And, as a matter of fact, as you know, my partner is my husband, Alan Collins, a master quantum think coach, and we've been delivering quantum think the system of thinking, principles, 21 principles, for more than 20 years now. I trademarked Quantum Think in 1997. I'm aging myself, but I did. And we started out by applying quantum thinking with leaders in corporations, in mostly major, the leading corporations of the world, by design, and also we've done work in some agencies of the United States government, and then we started doing, it was all done by teleconference programs, and then we started doing, opening it to the public, and specific programs that I developed to deliver this work while people were creating, in their real time, real life, real business, real personal life. So this is something that works, but the reason I brought that up, and then finally, sort of like opposite approach, someone told me once, you do everything the opposite direction. It's that, so people write a book and then they, not always, but then, develop a program out of it. I developed the program, then I wrote the book because I wanted to put it together and make it more accessible in the form of a book. But the reason I brought that up is because when we were doing work, particularly, 10, 15, 20 years ago, with people in, you could say, a general population, that they weren't all, seekers of higher consciousness. They weren't all seekers of wisdom. They were not all, into metaphysics and theosophy and all the different things that you and I may have studied. They were, just working in a company. And this was, in that sense, new to them. However, what happened is it works for them because of what I'm saying. This is something, it's a universal chord of our being. So that's, but one other thing I wanted to say about this, because people sometimes, they'll say, oh, I've heard this before. Actually, somebody was doing some work with us, and she said to me, oh, well, and it was someone very familiar with consciousness principles, and she said to me, oh, I read your book. And then I would be talking to her, and let's just call her Jane. That's not her name. And, she was assisting us in a certain way with marketing of Quantum Think. And I said to her, well, did you read the book, Do Quantum Think? And she said, yeah, I read the whole thing. I said, well, I don't think so, because her thinking was still in either or, in like, I won't say no possibility, but I would say I could see the limits of where she was thinking from. And so I thought, well, either Quantum Think failed or she didn't actually read the book. And so what happened was she went back and she read the book, and she said to me afterwards, you know what, Dianne? She said, you were right. I did read the whole book, but I was reading as if I already knew this stuff. And so she said, it didn't sink in. And this is a very important thing, I think, for all of us, and I call it listening from not knowing, is one of the practices, as you probably know, is that one of the least action pathways of human culture, and a least action pathway is not bad, it's not negative, it's just something automatic. We need many automatic things. We couldn't survive without it, obviously, in the body, and many other things, typing on a computer or playing an instrument. There's a certain automaticity to it that is valuable. But let's say, in the culture of being human, in order to survive, of course, we come from, we know, particularly if you've heard something, and we try, the least action pathway, the way the energy or the thought goes, because it's been that route before, it's not, consciously awakened that's the definition of how I'm distinguishing least action pathway. What happens is you go to a comparison mode and you go, oh yeah, I've heard that before, because we come from this old world view, industrial age conditioning, and that way of thinking is analytical. And what happens when you're in, ordinary logic is that you'll go to compare something to what it is you think you already know, something familiar to you. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not right or wrong, but the importance of this, distinguishing this, is that we're in a new time now. We are in a new era for humanity. We can see the systems and structures that were born of that level of either or thinking. Is it guilty or not guilty? Liberal or conservative, and all the rest that goes with that kind of either or and mechanism, for example, that was conditioned by that old worldview of thinking, is that what is not working in our systems and structures are now coming under scrutiny. They have been for many years. And we need to be able to look at things in a new way in our own lives. We're in a period of restructuring so that we can let go of what's no longer effective for ourselves personally, in our businesses, and in the world that we share, and come forth and let something new emerge. Now, if you're busy comparing what you're seeing or what you're hearing to what you already know, what happens, Graham, is that literally, I would say, you don't hear anything after that, because the only thing that you can hear is what you think you already know. So when you're, let's say, in a conversation with someone, that's why, and this is from the distinction, one of the 21 principles in quantum think, called moving from success to mastery. It's called success to mastery, because success, by definition, is measured by what already happened. So it's measured by past, the past. And that's fine, but if you want to live in a state of mastery, and quantum think is a mastery, it's a mastery model. It's for living a masterful life. I'm not going to make any, provisions or caveats about that. It's either, we're choosing to live a masterful life or we're not. I say, what in my book, what's the alternative? Living a life of mediocrity. So in this, a tradition of mastery, wanting to consciously live a masterful life, it's like in the Buddhist saying, the leave the cup empty so something new can come in. So when you're comparing, and this is, again, it's not personal to any of us. It shows up personally, but it's a cultural survival kind of least action pathway where we want to know that we understand that. We want to analyze what's coming in. These are natural, not natural, but this is what's been conditioned by that old worldview thinking. And so again, because we're in a new time, we want to be able to free ourselves. And so we can hear something new. And you know what I've been thinking about a lot, Graham, lately, for myself, is going to another level spiritually. So what is that? It's like, where are we getting our new ideas? Where are we getting our visions that we're passionate about? Where is it coming from? This infinite intelligent field. Now, in order to even receive that wisdom you know, we were talking about it at the beginning of this conversation, that comes the vehicle. You know, we're the vehicle of wisdom that is uniquely expressed through each of us. You and I know that most people today want to, I would say everyone, whether they're in touch with it or not, want to know that they have a purpose, that they have a sense of belonging on this planet, in this life, in this world, and that their belongingness is valuable, that we all want that. And so a very important aspect of it is being able to listen from not knowing. That is the recreation, recreating the distinction. That's how I mean it. I also mean it as recreation and amusement for your mind. Each of the quantum think distinctions, as you know, has a practice. The practice for accessing the state of mastery in that distinction is to listen from not knowing. Now, we have to do this as a conscious act because of what I said. To survive, we automatically listen from knowing. And we have that conditioning also. So, but to listen from not knowing, you do this with the awareness that you're doing it. Especially, and I always give the example, since I work with my husband for, 20 years plus, and we've been together 25 years, when we're in a conversation, it would be very easy to not be listening actually in the moment with him because, oh, I know him, I know what he's going to say, I know his habits, right? Don't we do this with people we love? And so I say, and it's just an inward silent, let me listen from not knowing. Now, since Alan and I both have access to the distinctions, as you do now, then it becomes like we have like a sort of another level of communication, an advanced level, where when we're not listening from not, freely and openly and actually getting the other person, actually hearing the intent of the other person in the conversation, we can point it out to each other, not like a judgment, but say, look, wait a minute, I don't experience you're like getting me. How about listening from not knowing? Okay. And it immediately wakes us up. And you go to another level of communication. So whether you're listening from not knowing to what we'll call spirit, right? Spiritual guidance, messages, however you relate to it in your own life, another person, and just even listening to your own self. What do I really want now? Okay, like this new worldview is emerging, and I'm here. If you're born in this time period, we're each here for a reason to, well, always the reason is to enjoy life and to be that, all the great virtues of loving and joyfulness and kindness and all that, compassion, but to be able to be in touch with yourself at such a level that you know what to do in the moment that it needs to be done, and you're confident within yourself in doing it. So that's really what this is all about, being able to distinguish what's shaping your thinking so that you can be in command of your life.
So Dianne, how does it fit together, being in that position of not knowing and applying the 4 aspects of knowing?
The 4 aspects of knowing.
So,
love that.
What you're saying in your book is the first.
Can you say a little bit more about that? And then I'll say what the 4 aspects of knowing are so people understand it. But what were you thinking about with regard to that, Graham?
Well, on one hand, you say come from a position of not knowing, but then you talk about the 4 aspects of knowing, which is, I'll just mention them, The first aspect is unawareness. The second one is conceptual. The third one is intuitive. And the fourth one is participatory. So I'm trying to just
Like,
grasp.
how can we know and not know at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay. And such is another one of the paradoxes of a quantum world. And you know, the quantum world is full of paradox. So what is a paradox is that two things that are, you know, both have validity and a certain trueness to them at the same time, even though it appears that they shouldn't. So, you know, if you go to the science where I, again, adapt to thinking what I learned from the science. So let's say in the earlier scientific thinking, okay, well, is energy, is it a particle or is it a wave? Well, that was kind of the either or, you know, that you think, well, we have to land on this one way or the other. Okay, is it a particle? Is it a wave? What is it? And of course, they realized that it's both, that energy exhibits both wave-like and particle-like qualities. So this hence comes the distinction, moving from either or to both and. And this can really open up a lot of opportunities for us. So I want to get to the four aspects of knowing. So the idea of many things being paradoxical in life is that we can listen from not knowing and at the same time connect to how are we related to that which we know. And this is the four aspects of knowing. So it's a very odd question. How are you related to what you know? And what I mean by what you know is what you hold in awareness. Okay, so what you know could be a goal that you have, it could be a situation that you're trying to figure out what to do about it. It could be anything. But I like the idea of using something that you want in terms of a result. But let me say something about the four aspects of knowing. Why is it important? Okay. Because, and I quote from a great sage who said, you can only manifest what you are conscious of being. You can only manifest what you are conscious of being. So, you know, a lot of times they use in the science language, you know, the wave collapses into a particle because that is the reality we focus on. Or I like to use the internet, is that, you know, we're the infinite mind of humanity. Where is it located? It's not located. Well, what is going to become your reality in the moment is what you decide to click on, right? What you tap your finger on, that's the reality. So it's something like that with our own mind, is what we focus on, and what we focus on expands. And we know that everything is vibratory, that it's called sympathetic resonance. So whatever is in a similar frequency range will attract, right? That's what they say in esoteric literature. Like attracts like at that level of reality. So the sage says you can only manifest what you are conscious of being. So if you have a result that you want, okay, something measurable, and so I say, if you're not getting the result you want, you can use this distinction, the four aspects of knowing, to see how are you related to that result. In this case, that which you know, that which you're holding in mind, in consciousness, in awareness. So if you're related in unawareness, the first aspect of being, that would be, I say, where you're flotsam and jetsam, a leaf in the wind, flotsam and jetsam on the sea of life, where you're basically a reaction to circumstance, okay? and I like to say it like this: old worldview, circumstance rules; new worldview, intent rules. And of course, intent is a conscious act. So circumstances come up, and you don't know. When we were doing our programs in companies, and we'd say, well, if you're related to the result that you said you wanted to accomplish in this program, in unawareness, it's like, what result? Or as I say, you're clueless, and you're clueless that you're clueless. Now, the interesting thing about the first aspect of knowing unawareness is that when you realize it, you're no longer in unawareness. You're instantaneously shifted. The second aspect of knowing is being related in concept. So let's say you have a result that you want to increase your business by 50%, okay, next year. And if you're related in concept, it may be that, this is the aspect of knowing that's primarily the old world view, because it's analytical, it's step by step, it's machine, analyze, break it down into its constituent parts, how do they all work together, a business plan. And it's good, right? Because it allows us to see. Conceptual knowing enables us to see what's immediately present, what's visible, even as far as your own vision or imagination can go in the moment. But we know in the quantum world view, that's about, at best, 10% of the whole picture. That's the beauty of intent, is that, so, we called the subtitle of our program, Quantum Results in Linear Time. So you're looking in linear time at this conceptual aspect of knowing. And the thing about the conceptual aspect of knowing is that it's separation consciousness. So you can see how that plays out in many aspects of the world today, and how people are with one another. Because in order to do these, horrific things that people do to one another, and it's not just, the worst things, the terrorists and things like that, but even in our own families, where we might snap out at someone or get irritated and, take it out on someone, these little things too. So this is why, conscious living is just so, it's necessary if we want to actually live a masterful life of these virtues that we aspire to, is to become aware of this so we can interrupt it and create new intent. So you look at conceptual knowing, and it keeps you separate, machine, parts, separate, physical. We look separate, even though we know technically, scientifically, there are distinctions, but no actual separations. I mean, we're breathing, or as, a master says, the air in the balloon and the air outside the balloon, and he was talking about consciousness in this case, you pop the balloon and it's rejoined with its source. So there's no actual separation. We know about, we're breathing out carbon dioxide, we're breathing in the oxygen that the plants give us. So it's all literally a unified field with many infinite number of distinctions, but no actual separations. Yet our thinking, we've been guided without knowing it, unwittingly, to think, these parts, personal and professional. And then we try to balance the parts of our lives. Well, maybe that's being in the wrong question. So this is what separation, conceptual thinking gives you. So if you have a goal that you're related to in conceptual knowing, it's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Remember, unawareness was what goal? Conceptual knowing is, oh, that's a good idea, but you're not actually feeling it. You're not being it. The sage says you can only manifest what you're conscious of being. There has to be some energetic pulse to it, some energetic connection. Now, third aspect of knowing I call intuitive. By the way, none of the distinctions are, quote, the truth. They are distinctions that are formulated, distinguished to give us a new awareness, a new relationship that will have us be in greater command and mastery of our lives. So from a quantum worldview, a very fundamental principle, there is nothing absolute about reality other than what you think of as eternal, divine source, creator, God. But for everyday human life, there are no absolutes. That's the good news, because if things were absolute, then there would be nothing we could do about it, because that's the definition of absolute, true under all circumstances, for all people, for all time. So when you realize, okay, what is a distinction? It's exactly what I just said, bringing something into your awareness in such a way that you have a new access to it, that you have a new relationship that will empower your life, to use your word. Now, intuitive knowing. Intuitive knowing, maybe you have a goal, I'm going to, increase my business by 50% next year. This you have, it's like a sense, a sixth sense, if you will, that it's going to happen. You're connecting to it. It's like you can't see how it's going to happen, but there's still a little bit of if in the picture. There's a little bit of separation, because in intuitive, it's like you're tuning in, but it seems still a tiny bit of separation from you. When I give you participatory knowing, it'll make this clear. Participatory knowing, the fourth aspect of knowing, means exactly that. You are participating in the result. So it could be said like this: you are in the experience that you are the seed, the blossom, and the fruit of the result. It's something like, if you are fortunate to be in a part of the world where you're going to eat today, your child is going to eat. It's not something that you're thinking about. It's in you. It's what we'd say the feeling tone of you, in your being. You know it. You're resonating it. You don't have to think, am I going to eat today? Now, we know in many parts of the world that's not true. But I'm just talking about, to use by illustration, for those of us fortunate enough to be in that situation. So it's something like that. It's not a perfect metaphor. But because when you have an intent for something new in your business, in your life, an intent to live your purpose fully expressed, even if you're not aware of what that next iteration of your purpose will be. We express our purpose in many ways, many, many, many ways throughout our life and in all areas of life. So again, this is what one of the principles in quantum think, the method, the art of distinguishing a new worldview of learning. It's not acquiring information and trying to apply it. It's distinguishing in your awareness in the present moment, as we're doing right now, that you're giving me the opportunity to do, Graham. Thank you. To distinguish something in your awareness right now that gives you a new relationship with it. This participatory knowing, the fourth aspect of knowing, is the domain of intent. And as you know, I make a distinction between intent and intention. Intention being a future goal, measurable result. Intent being like a force, a dynamic, activating force. It activates the energy intelligent field so that in a world of infinite possibility, how does it get narrowed down? If in every moment, right, as the scientists say, there's an infinite number of ways that reality can manifest. Well, for you, how does it get narrowed down? Because we can generate intent. And intent will attract many results consistent with it, not just one. And that's why I make a distinction between intent, which is more setting up the resonance, that which people call the law of attraction, that you're setting it up with conscious awareness that you're doing that by generating a statement of intent. Is that, instead of saying, I'm going to make, $2 million in my business next year, that would be an intention, a measurable result that may be an outcome of your statement of intent. Whereas the statement of intent might be something like, I'm just overjoyed with the way that my business is unfolding and catching on with people in the world in such a way that it's greatly affecting my, I'm making it too long now, but you could have many intents. I'm thrilled with the way my business is unfolding and I'm in a new financial status. So when you look at a statement of intent, this participatory knowing, first of all, on participatory knowing, just to finish up on that, it's that inner conviction. It's that knowing. It's that, this is happening. I don't see, in the quantum world, you never see all the parts of it before it happens at the outset. But it's like that that you're a generator of reality. You can activate those forces in play. You can use them because these are operating principles that are throughout nature and therefore within you and me as human beings, as people, as conscious observers.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Be Empowered podcast. For more on regaining your power by bridging that gap between who you think you are right now and who you really are, go to www.beempoweredgroup.com and enter your name and email address to receive a free ebook and get notified of any upcoming podcasts. Remember, when you know and feel connected to your spiritual mind, you master your world. Changing your energy transforms your life.